Hey, it's Joe.
And it's Keith Argueta.
And we are here again doing a podcast for Business Sense. Again, just want to say at the beginning that if you're enjoying this podcast, please like, subscribe. We are on Spotify. We're also on YouTube. And also share the love. You know, the CPA world is a tight-knit group. It's a small community. It's big, but it's also small at the same time. So if you think someone could benefit from what we're talking about, please share. And again, subscribe. So today we're kicking off. The topic that we're going to talk about is remote learning. We've had a significant, remote work.
Remote work
is a better word to say. I saw you're like remote learning.
Well, remote. I mean, that's part of it, right? I mean, remote created, avenues and mediums to have to get information. And so, whether it's a seminar, whether it's a online training module, that it's now remote.
Yeah,
it's because of the whole remote movement, I guess.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about that. I mean, we're small enough that I don't know if if I'm being honest, I don't think we have like a strict guidelines around our remote work policy. We operate. One of the things that I know that I value that I was mentioning to you is like that everyone's unique, you know?
Yeah.
Like we need to value the uniqueness of individuals and the uniqueness of who they are, how they work, their family.
Yep.
You know, like I hope that we can always do that. And that sort of evolved for me because I'm also like a strategic thinker, and so I think like in systems and so a lot of my frustration when you're wired that way, it comes from like wanting things to be one way, but that might not be the best choice, meaning you need to maybe be more open and progressive in regards to thinking about everyone as an individual, as a human being that, you know, has emotions, has things going on in their life, you know.
Yeah.
I'm very tempted to have a venting situation with me because I have a newborn, John Daniel, and that is tough. Tell you what, I got to give props to my wife Bianca because last night I was like, hey, I could tell she was super tired, and by the way, she's still like working, you know, she's still like sitting. I mean, she has to. She runs our payroll. She, you know, sends out returns, and it's a very sensitive thing. So we want to. She's done it for the past few years, so we just keep her. She retains that information. She's good at it. So you know, last night I take the night shift. Well, not really the night shift. It was more like the 10 p.m. to like 1 a.m. shift.
Yeah.
And she's telling me John doesn't sleep, but I get there and he's sleeping during the day. So I don't really necessarily, I don't say I don't believe it, but I'm not taking it like for what she's saying. Like I'm not taking it literally. I'm taking it like, you know, he's being fussy, you know. Yeah. John does not sleep. He doesn't sleep. And I told her, I don't know what kind of training. You probably have had some type of like sleep deprivation training because you're a Marine, I imagine.
Yeah.
But it's like worse than that because there's no rhythm. There's no predictability.
Yeah.
You know, like if you get some sleep and you're tired, you get some sleep like 15 minutes and it's like, okay, we're going to sleep for 15 minutes. But this is like, I don't know if it's 2 minutes.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's 12 minutes.
Yeah.
You're just like dozing off. It's like, whoo, like. So, man, it is torture. And Gabe's over here cracking up. You're in for a rude awakening, Gabe. And I'm sure, you know, Keith has some stories. But I needed to give a shout out to my wife, Bianca, because I commend her. And I texted her. I said, you know what? I said, you deserve something for this. This is your fourth one. And I know it's tough. but I think I just had like a true revelation on it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you deserve something for this. I'm like, what do you want? She sent me a picture of Suburban, so I'm like, come on, man, inflation again. I was, but anyway. But hey, remote work, and it's a hot topic, and I'm like we said, that's why I think these podcasts are really interesting and they're fun because we don't. Like Keith came in, he's like, "What are you talking? They're gonna talk about remote work," and so we don't. There's a part that's like, man, we haven't really even had that conversation, and that's okay because we've talked about it before. Like we're finally, I wouldn't say finally. I think your goals and what you're focused on changes as the business grows and progresses, and now we're at the point where it's like, okay, what does it take to be the next level? We want to make some significant investments, and so we're like, what do we need in order for this organization to endure for the future? And one of them is understanding our values, understanding our policies towards something like remote work. So pass it on to you. What are your thoughts on remote work?
Well, yeah, that's a good topic. I think what first comes to mind initially, if I think back, remote work obviously isn't anything new. It's just something that became a lot more prominent and more important and more relevant during COVID, But as I was thinking here, I was like, remote work, I got introduced into remote work when I first got into public accounting as an auditor, just because we're going to different clients, different sites. We were never in the office. We'd spend 1 or 2 weeks at one client. We'd travel, and all we needed was just our laptop and internet connection. And a lot of the files, we were already a paperless firm. So a lot of our clients were already used to just sending us a lot of things electronically. And so we were able to audit electronically. And so adopting or getting, when COVID hit, there wasn't that much that I needed to change. The fundamental aspect of what makes remote working capable is the technology piece. And it's so key. And so having the great technology in place, having good machines that can handle a lot of those softwares and programs and applications, it kind of made it seamless, whether you're, and it's the only real adoption was really learning how to do Zoom calls and video calls, just because, it created those meetings that used to happen in person. Yeah. At client sites or while we're traveling, just needed to become more virtual through a platform like a Teams or a Zoom. But that's the initial thoughts that I had around it. Fortunate for me, like I said, I had some experience working out of the office, working remotely, traveling, and so it wasn't a huge change. But now after COVID, it's a very serious criteria or talking point or need or part of the job for a lot of roles now. And so I see that with, how it applies to our firm, individuals or new team members coming on is is it remote work? Is there an option to work remotely? And so it's become just common to have that conversation around the team, like I mentioned, the technology piece. So those are some of the things that kind of come to mind initially when we're talking about remote work. But I think we just kind of jumped in and we just started doing it. We figured it out, and I think within days we were when everything shut down during COVID, everyone was dispersed working from home, and we just made it happen. Yeah. So it couldn't have been done without the technology piece, though.
So do you have an opinion on it? Because I would guess there's probably the topics I would put is that come to mind are 100% remote. Yeah. 100% on site. Do you have an opinion yet, or what do you?
I don't have a strong opinion other than I hate saying this. It's it depends. That answer that you get from attorneys or other people is the one that I'll say is that situation dictates. Meaning what does your job really entail? For us as professionals, as accountants, as public accounting, it's totally doable. It's 100%. We can go 100. I think we can go 100% remote, or we can go 100% to being in the office. I think that the balance is somewhere in between giving employees the flexibility I think is important. I stay in close contact with old colleagues of mine, and I had one that, unlike us, doesn't have kids, isn't married, doesn't have a lot of not that they don't have responsibilities, that they don't have anything physically holding them down into a specific geographic location. So, he's traveled to Costa Rica and worked remotely for 3 months, and it's interesting just because he's in public accounting and it's worked out for him. He's worked out a deal with his firm. And so I think my opinion is that I would err more on the side of if the job allows for it, then I think it should be optional. We shouldn't force employees to come into the office, but we also shouldn't force employees to work remotely, unless, again, our firm makes a hard decision on our vision and values that we're going to be 100% remote or have a hybrid model. So I think what it comes down to is being flexible. Obviously, there's some jobs that you just can't do remote, right? Like whether it's the restaurant industry or hospitality. You just can't do some of those jobs remotely.
Does it matter if that person? Well, I guess you sort of answered it, but let me ask you anyway. Does it matter, in your opinion, when you're thinking about remote, the experience of that person? Do you think that comes into play? Because I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. Because one of the things in talking to the younger workforce, the individuals that are coming out of college, and you see that they have a lot of like these internships with these really big, companies, that HPs and the Facebooks and the big tech companies, but they're all remote. And so they start off, they just, Dell, you name it. And so their first work experiences that are internships, right, whether it's right in college, towards the end of college, or right after college, is still kind of not having that same experience that we had of coming and working in the office. So I don't know what that's going to mean in the long term, but I think it's just an evolution, good or bad. I look at it because we had the opportunity of working in the office for so many years that I feel like they're kind of missing out on that kind of experience of, hey, let me just walk over, like the bullpen. I can just walk out of my office, go to the bullpen, just like, hey, let's talk. Can we give a few minutes to talk about this? And so that communication, that accessibility allows for collaboration, allows for, tackling things that are urgent. I feel like individuals that have been in the workforce for some time now have experience on how to like work independently when you need to, how to work with others and collaborate when you need to, how to prioritize certain things. People that are just, or employees that are just starting off, and still kind of require, or are still in that first 6 months, 1 year to 3 years, where they require a more degree of supervision and collaboration. I think it might be a little bit more challenging for them because they don't have the experience to work fully independently, to fully make a decision on something that might be very technical for them. So that's what I was thinking about when you said experience. But I feel like our team specifically, heck, we have a young team and they just, like, they're so adaptable. Right. And, COVID happened, everything shut down, and we just all went to working from home. And we just fumbled and bumbled, but we got it done, So that's pretty remarkable to see, I think.
Yeah.
And I don't think we're alone on that. I think a lot of firms, a lot of employers experience that with, the younger generation, that we're just so flexible, so adaptable, and I think we're seeing that they're benefiting also significantly.
Yeah. So one thing that comes to mind when you're talking about like the experience part is one thing that comes to mind is when I first started my career, started with a Big Four firm, and I just felt out of my element. It just I don't know what it was. I mean, looking back, it probably. I mean, they give you training, and they invest a lot in training. You fly out, you do training.
Yeah.
But then, like, the most important the most important piece of learning is your peer group.
Yeah.
You know, that bullpen.
Yeah.
And then your senior.
Yeah.
And I mean, there was times where I seriously doubted my decision to be a CPA. Mm-hmm. And I seriously was like, is this for me? And I can imagine, I would think that would be so much more daunting if I was like at home by myself.
Yeah.
You know,
that's a really good point. Yeah.
Getting this work and just feeling that way, and then not being able to look at like people who are just starting with me and see if they're feeling the same way, you know, because they can say like, yeah, I got it. But then they're like, you know, like, I don't know if you got it. Because, you know, nonverbals are such a big key. Yeah. And I think that gave me comfort is I was at least able to spot a few people. I wasn't the only one that I could tell maybe were confused by the task or maybe were struggling. And I don't think you see that in the remote work. And I don't think that comes across unless you're doing emojis like, yeah, I get it. And then putting like a little face with the squiggly line on the mouth. It's like, you know, conveys that you're not sure about your answer. And so I just think that would be really hard. I mean, in public accounting, you have, like, to me, 2 big learning curves. You got your first 2.5 years, 2 to 3 years learning curve, where you're supposed to, you know, go from new person to experienced senior. And then you got your next learning curve where you're then learning, like, managerial, relationship. You know, those are your learning curves. The technical, which you're going to learn 70-80% of what you need to learn in that first learning curve. Yeah. And then the relational, which that takes a little bit more time. Yeah. You know, it could take years. Yeah. You know, some people never even get there. So I just think that first learning curve, I don't see how that would, I think that would be really challenging. And I saw someone who I'm connected to on LinkedIn, and, you know, he's a 100% remote work firm. He has about a $6.5 million practice, and he's big emphasizing, you know, remote. Yeah. And so I just messaged him, you know, I sent him a message on LinkedIn there because I was kind of confused because, you know, he's being an advocate and proponent of this position. But then I also remembered a post of him saying we had terrible turnover. Yeah. Because it seemed like the positioning was like, hey, you know, this is the best way. You know, I watched The Mandalorian. This is the way, you know, it's like, this is the way. And he's trying to lead the way. But then your numbers, like your attrition rate is still high. And his feedback was, well, it was really difficult onboarding, you know? And so maybe that is a constraint, you know, in our field is maybe it works, but maybe it's like a hybrid. I remember I was at a firm in Houston here, Briggs & Vasoka. They had, like, when you worked a certain level, you got like 1 day a week if you're like a supervisor and above. So
usually Fridays.
Yeah. Well, we couldn't pick Fridays.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. You know why? You can't pick. I mean, human nature is human nature. So there's that part. The other piece that I think it depends on your firm, on the kind of firm that you have. And again, this goes back to strategy and values. But if you got like a firm, in my opinion, our clients we have some really big engagements. I mean, they're big. And I found, I'm pretty sure you found that those clients require face-to-face, even if you're going to do the same thing remote. There's something, can't explain it. I'm sure there's some psychological, scientific reason, but they want you there. Yeah. And you have to be there. And again, because it's that communication barrier, it's because a lot of communication is nonverbal. And I don't know, I think it's just, I don't know if it's the flesh or maybe you can accomplish some of that by just like Zoom. But I think there's a mix where, you know, some of my bigger clients, I know innately inside that, okay, I need to go visit this client. You know, even if I'm gonna do the same exact thing. So I think how you're built, you know, in regards to your book and the type of clients in that book, because my understanding is this person who does real estate, it's like a lot of real estate. So there's probably a lot of like individuals, there's probably some institutional and they probably handle them differently. Yeah. But if it's just like a 1-touch, 2-touch and, under 3,000 or under 4,000 in fees, I think that's a different on, and how this relates to remote. It's like, well, how does that relate? Well, it's because if you're not like getting practice on how to function in an office, that's not to me something that comes innate. I mean, maybe some people are gifted with that, right? Like how you operate professionally, how you handle yourself, I was a small town guy. So the first time I came in the office, I was like, literally one of my reviews comments is kind of tone it down a little bit. You got too much bravado. I mean, seriously, that was it. So I didn't know, I had to like operate. I don't know, whatever. I don't know if I ever did that or not, but I had to learn. And so I think that comes to mind. I mean, do you have any take on that? I mean, I
think something underlying to when you say clients, I think it has to do also with, like I said earlier, the industry, that and the demographic of the client. Mm-hmm. If we're working with some older school, blue collar construction, whatever it might be, manufacturing, there's not a lot of remote option there. They're just very hands-on people, and they like their people to be hands-on, and that's the culture that they built. And so it might require us to have a little bit more touches, a little bit more face-to-face, and I think that might have something to do with it. So I think that's kind of just what my observation is on what you just said.
Yeah. What the word that came to my mind as you're saying that is service and figuring out who you're going to be. And I think the mistake that I see people that are maybe a little bit younger, is they're not respecting enough what the ones that have come before us and are still out there. These legacy firms that got millions and millions of dollars of revenue under their belt and are making really good money, and seeing, okay, well, how is that? Like what's that phenomenon all about? What? And you'll notice they're very relational. Yeah. Hey, I'm going to go to your office. Yeah. And our generation, and I fell victim to this too, because the lure of it is the whole get rich without working. Like that's the lure. It's the idolatry of wanting to relax. Like that's where I think this comes from. And it's what I'm getting to is the desire to automate, systemize everything. Like this is our way and that's it. And I used to be that way, but that really defies if one of our values, and we haven't established that, we haven't put those in stone, so to speak. But if one of our values is that recognizing that everyone is unique and what that means, then that means you can't be a firm like that. If you want to give great service to have higher fees so that we're not a sweatshop. I don't want to be a sweatshop. And I don't think we've done a good job of not being a sweatshop. Then it's like you said at the beginning, it's like it depends. How do you work remotely? What is that like for you? What's your style?
Well, it's tough now. I mean, when the pandemic, I'm just thinking back, I used to be able to work from home. I had a home office, and then I had a third baby, and then that home office was converted to a nursery, and so I don't have a designated room in the home. So I've just got a desk just kind of off to the side, and so all my kids right now are they're not of school age, so they're all still home. And my wife is home, and so it's hard for me to get a lot of deep work, deep thinking to myself. So, and this is just as of the last year. But I can, if I need to do some things from home, I'll either get up early before everyone gets to bed, or wait till everyone goes to bed and then try to work try to work from home. So it's tough, but you know what I do enjoy is just being able to go to like a Starbucks, talk to a client, have a meeting with a client on site, go to a local Starbucks, get something to eat, pull up my laptop, check emails. So like and if I can dig into that before you know it, 2 hours have passed, and I'm like, all right, this is solid. I can do this, no interruptions, and I can just follow up with things, and I can get work done that way. But that's kind of how it is with me specifically right now, working remotely. It still works. I just can't. I refer to it now as I'm working in the office or out of the office, because out of the office can mean I'm home, I'm at Starbucks, I'm at a coffee shop, I'm getting something to eat, and I just happen to pull up my laptop, and I'm, that's what it is now.